Going live. Hello and welcome to uh,
Out of states
hello and
DMing.
welcome to uh, where we talk
Out of
about
states
D&D
DMing.
related stuff. I'm your host, Lux Blackheart. Uh, my brain just stopped working. This is my co-host.
It's
So thank you for joining us. We are going to be talking about several different things in this video. First thing is we're going to address some of the technical difficulties we have been having with past videos. We will be then talking about a slight recap before we go into future episodes. Uh, Part of the problem we have been having is audio problems. Like last episode, there was apparently it didn't decide to record properly, where I would come in and out,
and
which
then
was
there was an
annoying.
episode where I wasn't able to be heard for the first hour.
Yes. We're not exactly sure why it decided to mute him for an entire episode, or to have me come in and out. It was annoying.
Then there was the
Uh,
internet outage.
yeah, there was an internet problem that same episode where it decided to have him not recorded, does it cut us off mid episode? And then you can hear him for the part two of that episode, uh, which was kind of funny, but then it's like he made some good points and talked about good things because I could hear him, but no one else could because it had him muted. Uh, and there's been parts where uh, it just gone dark where you couldn't see us, so you couldn't see our cameras. I don't know why it does that. Uh, we are trying to do our best to work on making everything better. Uh, make it so we don't have to stress random things because we want the viewer to be able to enjoy what we do without going all these guys are its problems because they're having problems. Uh, because we are not professionals. We are new to doing this. So please be patient.
It's only episode 7.
Yeah, we haven't been doing this for very long. We don't have a big old support staff moderating, adjusting, or fixing everything. So it is somewhat a so being problematic problematic there. Uh, we will eventually, most likely, redo those episodes once we reach a point where we are sure that we won't have a repeat in technical difficulties. I can't say when we're going to redo them, but we will eventually redo them. Probably not go on so many side tangents or rants, um, and try to stay more focused. Uh, yeah, it pretty much sums it up. Just don't want to beat a dead horse. Um, but to recap the previous episodes, we talked about humans. Uh, we talked about elves, dwarves, gnomes, halflings, half orcs, and half elves. Each one of those races, in itself, it's not bad. They do have unique play styles. They do have their own niches, what they're better for. Uh, and There is no wrong choice because what you play is technically the right choice. It may not seem like it, or it's like doing this route, it might be better role play wise or statistic wise to choose certain races over others if you're trying to do a particular thing. But technically, as long as you're not going against racial normalities to a point where it doesn't make sense, then it's right. Like, for instance, dwarves aren't particularly known for being rogues. Yeah, they're
or
sneaky
mages.
dwarves, but going in as I'm going to be the rogue, yeah, mm, what type of rogue? Like a locksmith type rogue, where your family are a bunch of smiths, because that would make sense because they really good. They do love working with metal and stuff like that. But because of how their honor system works, it's kind of like they're not known for being criminals. There are criminals, but it's like uh, they're not really known for being wizards or sorcerers. They are there, but it's one of those like one in uh like 1 in 10 or something like that. Because they do love like paladins and clerics. Elves do generally make good sorcerers and wizards, but they also make good like rangers or range uh, oriented fighters. Halflings make probably the best rogue because of some of their racial stuff they get to being sneaky. Uh, Gnomes are good at magic users, but they can be good
Most healers,
fighters. Yeah. Uh, Half orcs make good barbarians. They make good melee related fighters because they are about like me tough, me big, me go break enemy. Half elves are you can put them in the same category as humans, as they're technically good at whatever they're playing. If anyone ever says, oh, humans make the worst magic users, if humans make the worst clerics, if humans make the worst this, the worst that, they're wrong. And if you don't believe me, look up the spells that have names attached to, like Odaluk or Mordecai, and then go look up what their race are. There's a reason why like 90% of all the named magic users are humans, because technically, historically, they're better at being whatever the heck they're being played at than any other race because they're a universal race. It's easier to come in with any sort of weird type of background in the core Greyhawkian verse because there is so many options for humans that it's ridiculous. And because Greyhawk can be listed as a melting pot from people who come from multiple parts of the world, humans are extremely diverse. So they usually have the better criminal backstories, heroic backstories, tragic backstories because they're universal. Half elves uh, fit that universal rating because they're generally accepted just as much as humans are. They are non-specific, as in, oh, my favorite class is this because I have this racial bonuses as my stats. I should probably be one of these classes because that benefits this here better. They're like humans. They have in the general block. They don't have any racial stat adjustments. So there's no bonus to this score, minus to this score. They don't have an actual set bonus class. It's whatever class you go into first is your favorite class. So they are not more prone to going a certain route, which makes them more universal, therefore probably better. Uh, does I real state that they are an interesting race to play. Even though my favorite core race is stuck between dwarf and halfling. Does like trying to play the honorable. Oh, and I'm heavily coughing right now. Sorry about that. But dwarves are like, I want to be the honorable person. I want to be the honor bound person. I don't want to be the criminal or the just random person. Dwarves do good at that. Then you have like, I feel like being sneaky, not necessarily like backstabby rogue and stuff, but I just want to be a little bit more stealthy. Halflings, because they get bonuses to move. Yeah, to move silently. They get that there. They get bonuses to hide because they're small sized. They get a bonus to hit because they're size and a bonus to AC. So it's kind of like there's a lot going that make them technically a really good combat oriented race. Just unlike everyone else, well, except for gnomes because they're also small size. That +1 to AC and that +1 to attack rolls is really good. And my co-host can point out that any bonus is a good bonus. Uh, Whether it seems non um, non consequential or anything like that. Uh, because having a +1 can make the difference between being killed by a monster or passing the skill check. Do you have anything to add, Almighty co-host?
No, one doesn't seem like a lot, but it can be the difference between actually hitting your opponent or deflecting incoming damage.
Yes. Uh,
I'd rather have +4, but hey,
well, that's right. The +4 to hide checks for being small sized is generally really good. Because when it comes to stealth, halflings, not counting anything else, because of their size and racial stuff, they get a come in with like a overall +5 to hide and +3 to move silently because they get a bonus for being halfling to move silently, a bonus because they're generally higher dex, and a bonus to hide from their size. So even if you're going, I want to be a fighter, you can play a stealth fighter. Why? Because they have the stuff that actually ends up counteracting armor check penalties. So when you get to the point where like I'm a halfling wearing full plate, people are gonna go, "Oh, that's a -6 to your self check. You're not gonna pull it off." And you just look at them and go,
isn't
oh,
that cute?
really?"
Having a plate mail.
Uh, because it's somewhat hilarious seeing a 3 foot tall person decked in steel. This is like, the child's playing make believe. But then you see him up and disappear because by the time you can either afford and or find that armor, there's a good chance that they took the stealthy feat and or splurged on the right things to increase those skills. So it's like, but you have a -6. It's like, well, yeah, I have a -6 to my hide check, but not counting anything else other than the starting stuff. I have a +5 because of size and racial. Well, not size and racial, but the size and dex, which means that's a -1 to my hide check straight off the bat, not counting
Well,
anything else.
they are only 3 feet tall, so they could hide behind the nearest barrel, and you'd have and you couldn't see over them.
Yeah, well, because of that, concealment bonuses do play them, and then when it comes to them being quiet, because they get inherent +3 from stuff, that -6 turns into a -3. So not counting anything else, they still have a decent bonus because they're cutting that in half. And that's not counting if they took like the feat stealthy, which gives a +2 to both those skills, or them spending money to have the uh, hide in shadows and silent movement enhancements on the armor, because there is the graded versions of both of those, which adds +15 to the ability to hide and move silently. So once they get to the point where they can afford it, they can literally be stealth gods. And it's always funny to go, but you're in full play. It's like, and you have a tower shield, and but all this, you can just look and go, and watch me, John Cena. It's hilarious. Uh,
Because I spent way too much money to be able to do this, and now I can disappear.
yeah. Uh, I think some of the funny stuff is people trying to argue against a stealth fighter because like it's pointless. You're wasting all your money on this. It's like no, I'm not. I'm sneaking around. I am avoiding combat that I don't have to do it, and then I'm sneaking to get into a better flank. I'm sneaking to get in a position where I can defeat the more important bad guy, not just the lackeys. Because I've not only played non-rogue characters that have had better stealth abilities than people playing a stealth character, because they don't take certain things into consideration. They don't think certain things are important and crap like that. And then you show up as a stealth-based character. And I'm not even talking about like I'm a health halfling fighter. I'm talking about I'm a human fighter that has a better stealth than the party's actual rogue, which is like it's like, oh, you took the feat, you're a small sized character, you're that race there. Why am I doing better at stealth with you while also wearing heavier armor? It's because they generally stop there. They don't put enough ranks into those things there because they're like, oh, I only need it this high. I don't need it as high as possible. While then listening to them bit almost there's and then listen to them complain that why am I failing checks? Why can these bad guys see me? It's like because you're level 10 and you don't have as much points in it as you probably should, because you're only getting like an overall +10 on both of those because you're over relying on racial modifiers and a feat. So it's like it could be so much higher. Uh, so it is somewhat disappointing to see people go that route. Uh, things that we will be covering in future episodes, though, besides trying to keep things lively, is we are considering the next topic being the classes, or going over what attributes there are and what those particular attributes do. Then there's also feats we could go over, or uh, skills. My brain stopped for a moment. So there is a list of different things that we plan on covering. We haven't fully decided on what we're going to cover first. So if you, the guest, see this and would like to hear certain topics be talked about, go ahead and leave a comment. So that way we can see it and go, oh, we got people that want to hear about this or want to hear about that. Uh, but there is a lot of skills and a lot of feats. Uh, there's a bundle of classes. We could then also go over equipment and some of the uses for equipment, because you wouldn't believe how many people discredit certain pieces of equipment, and then they reach a point in the game where it's like, well, I wish I had this because I can't do this without this. Like the importance of crowbars and rope.
Or daggers.
Yeah, the daggers. Oh my god, the amount of times it's like daggers are pointless. They're stupid. It's like yes, but they are the go-to weapon if you are grappled, bound, or just you need to quickly just have something that pop out small to cut or stab something. Because they are the ultimate go-to for those particular things. And the amount of people that don't take daggers seriously because they're like, why? Uh,
Until you're put into a situation where you need a dagger.
how many times has that happened?
Several.
and I'm not even talking about intentional things. It's like, you've been eaten by this monster. What do you do? I cut my way out. Do you have a dagger? No. Do you have a short sword? No. Do you have anything that counts as a one handed light weapon? No. What do you have? I have a great sword. Well, you can't cut yourself out because you can't move with the great sword. Then how do I get out? It's like, you don't. You die and hope to God someone cuts you out from the outside. Or someone that gets eaten that has a small weapon that can actually be utilized to do there. Because right now the game mechanics are not in your favor. Uh, God, I love daggers. They are an underrated weapon. There's a lot of things that are underrated. Uh, when we're done going over classes, attributes, skills, feats, and equipment, um, we will be transitioning into expanded topics, like going over expanded races. Because expanded races can enhance a game or ruin a game simply by what that race can do. It's like, for instance, a lot of people like flying races. It's like, I can fly. But then it's like, you're playing a game type where flying is not advantageous because it becomes pointless because you're in a dungeon, you're in hallways, you're in a small cave where flying doesn't put you out of reach of the bad guy, or there's just no point because it's like, oh, the highest this cave ceiling go is like 10 feet. So flying only lets you it go, I'm just going to fly over the party. So there's a
Well, it's
bunch of
not pointless if you really, really want to play an avian race. It's not pointless. It's just you're not going to be able to use your character to the
yeah,
fullest extent that it has if you're in a dungeon.
yeah, just
And the dungeons has walls that are like or ceilings that are only 10 feet high.
yeah. There's also the fact that game mechanical wise is you have a wingspan that technically speaking, if there's not enough space for you to flap your wings, you can't fly. So in a tight corridor with a on average your wingspan is usually twice your height. So if you're like 5 feet, on average you're gonna have about a 10-foot wingspan because each wing is roughly going to be around your height. So if you're like, okay, the walls are only like 6 feet apart, I start flapping my wings. It's like your wings are hitting the sides because they can't fully do it. So you're battering your wings and you're not getting flight because they're smacking there. There's some races that get really good dark visions and are really good in close, uh, closed in, close quarter dark things that a lot of people like. Dark vision is awesome. Dark vision is amazing. Dark vision can be a pain in the butt when someone around you goes, I light a torch. I cast light on this object. I crack open the sun rod. Because it's like, yay, they can't see, but I can see. And suddenly, bright light. You may not be light sensitive, but anyone who's gone is like, this is a dark room. I've been in this dark room for a while. My eyes are adjusted, and suddenly someone turns on a light. It's like, that hurts. It can cause you minor problems. Uh, and when it comes to those things, it can just be. There are some races that sound cool, sound amazing, but then it's like, oh, unless we're going to be doing lots of things around or in water, that race is going to suck. Because what's the point of having something with a high swim bonus or a high swim speed or getting bonuses when in water when you're in a desert environment? It's like, where's all the water at? So there's stuff that you don't get to utilize because you're in the wrong environment. Uh, so there's just random things there. So we will be going over some of my favorite expanded races, and then going over like, here's where they're good at, and then here's how some players tried to play them, and then failed to play it correctly or good because of what they tried to do with it and how it just did not play out well. Uh, I do also have expanded equipment pulled from multiple different sources that can greatly improve a game if used correctly. There is also expanded feats that can make a game so much more better because it helps fix particular problems. But if misused, they can somewhat ruin it because you are restricted in how many feats you get and when you get them. So it is important how those go. Um, a few expanded spells. The spells can be a lot of fun. They can fix a lot of random things, but you do have to be careful with expanded spells because the same thing can then just completely offset and or ruin things. Because as a DM, you have to try to account for random shenanigans the best you can, but you have to take into account the ingenuity of the players and them going, well, the
Players can
spell.
ruin players can ruin the entire campaign because they thought of something the DM could not account or did not account for.
uh, that and trying to just misuse a spell. For instance, the amount of times people have tried to go, I'm gonna use create water in its lungs. It's like lungs are not considered open containers. So no, because they're not like I'm going to eh, have the party barbarian like manhandle it and pintle it down and then waterboard it. No, I'm just gonna go, oh, its mouth is open. Oh, it has nostrils, it's breathing, therefore its lungs are technically open because they're containers. It's like it's not a container. Create water inside. It's like, no. No, that's not how that works because it's not a container. So it's just random
Would be if you
things.
let it.
DMs that let spells be used in a combat way when spells are listed as harmless, because harmless means it doesn't do actual harm. So you kind of have to think out of the box on how to use it to do harm, or hope that a creature shows up where it automatically, because of that creature, the spell is now harmful because of how that creature works. Like a dry lich. A dry lich takes damage like, per gallon of water you hit it with. So you can go, oh, it's a dry lich. I'm a level 7 cleric. Here's 14 gallons of water on it. Is it dead? Let's see. Most likely because it takes a lot of damage from all that water.
So does that mean that the Wicked Witch of the West was a dry lich?
No, she was a individual that just had a ultraviolet allergy to water. By ultraviolet reaction, as in instant death for getting wet. And there is some creatures with weird weaknesses that just it's like um another thing that I do that we do plan on eventually going over is some monsters and how some of those monsters interact within the world and how those monsters, if they're involved, can either make a game more interesting, more fun, or just ruin the entire thing if they're not used correctly. For instance, hydras shouldn't be particularly used as a core bad guy to fight because hydras are a pain in the rear. When I say their CR rating could probably be upped a couple of points because it's just not a fair creature to fight, I mean it. There's in one of my previous games I ran years ago. The party of 7 level 7 party members went to decide that they're finally going to go take care of the Hydra they're supposed to fight a while before. And the entire, if I hadn't decided to intervene with NPCs, it would have been a complete and total party wipe because here's a CR4 5-headed Hydra, a generic, unmodified, unspecific Hydra, obliterated an entire party. And you're probably thinking, well, they must have just been a bunch of guests. No, there was 2 monks, 2 barbarians, a cleric, a sorcerer, and a fighter. And the
So
sorcerer was
Hydra also has 5 heads, so
yeah,
you
it
know
also
it's kind of
yeah,
an important
it
way.
has 5 heads, so it can fight 5 people at once, or just look at one person and make them cry. Uh, because of how the party was done, it took out the sorcerer in round 1 with a confirmed critical. Uh, and several within several rounds, it had one of the barbarians and 2 of the monks down, and it's like within 7, no, within like 8 rounds. The only 2 party members that was left was the fighter that decided to run, and then the cleric that then decided to run when he realized that there's no one stopping it from getting to him, and he almost died trying to escape because it was trying not to let him escape. So I had to have a bunch of NPCs show up to defeat it and save the party. Because this is a creature that may not seem super powerful, may not seem super strong, but because of 2 core attributes it has, it's capable of steamrolling a relatively powerful or large group of players because of those attributes. The first one was regeneration. And it's even though it's not a generic regeneration as in it works against all damage, it's a if acid or fire damage is dealt to it, it cannot recover those 2 damage types. So it kind of is like, okay, it has to heal naturally, not through regeneration. So if you don't do those types, you're kind of like, hmm. And the second thing is being able to have a lot of attacks with a reach. So there are certain creatures like that that if you decide to make it the pinnacle bad guy, you don't have to do really much to make it something that the party goes, uh-oh, because of just how generically powerful it is. Uh, Liches fall in the same category. Uh, Then there is the whole ACs. People, a lot of players consider like a 15, or like around a 15 to be, oh, that's too low, it sucks. When it's like, no, no, it doesn't. A 15 can literally be the hardest AC to defeat because you have to take the fact that the die roll in it. My co host has suffered greatly at the hands of creatures with an AC of 15. Isn't
That's
that
because
right?
whether it's a dice spot or my own dice that I'm rolling, I like it likes to produce fives when I have a seven, a bonus of plus seven.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it does really like to go from like, yeah, I'm hitting high, I'm doing good, to fudge monkeys. Uh,
Because nothing says screw you like getting a 14.
yeah, it's in the 14, and that's a 14 with going. I have a plus 11. Why can't I hit this AC 15 monster? It's like because you have to take the die roll into account. Because the die roll is probably the most important thing ever, unless you can guarantee you can reach certain numbers. The die roll can literally be the thing that stops you from succeeding or not. There's been multiple times where I'm like, okay, you're fighting skeletons. It has like a +1 to hitting with its bows and like a +2 with its sword. Yay! The party going. Okay, we have really high ACs because we have a bunch of like 17s and 18s. Yay! It's like, okay, I'm rolling high
Natural
enough to
20,
hit
natural
you.
20, natural 20, natural 20,
Yeah, it's like,
natural 20.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I have a low modifier to hit, but I'm rolling really good. And then the rest of the party going, we have a bunch of like sixes and sevens to hit. This should be easy. And then the
Right.
average roll is a 14 total. So it's like, why are we missing?
Or
We shouldn't be missing.
or our most recent game where the people that were searching wound up with negative numbers.
Yeah, does the bad guys uh well, it was funny because like the bad guys, because of their low wisdom and having no points in particular skills, had negatives to their listen and search, listen, search, and spot checks. And the only reason why the party was actually succeeding was the dice were being really low. Like, low enough for them to get negatives on multiple die rolls, while the party was getting just high enough to go, wow, I'm getting low because like I have like a +9 to this because of this stuff here, but I'm getting like I got a 14. There's a chance it does it. No, I got a -3. So it has no idea you're there. So even though you're within like 5 feet of it, it just overlooks you because you're that well hidden because it
Or my
might as well
plus
have its
nine,
eyes shut.
right? Or my plus nine, where I rolled a one, got a 10,
Yes. Yeah.
and then you're like, well, this you may be found, and then -6 or -3 was the roll.
Yeah, so it's the die rolls can, even if they're like not helping you during that game session, there's no guarantee that it's going to help the bad guy either. Uh, so there's a lot of like give and takes about a lot of random things, and there's also some creatures that you have that a DMs have to be worried about having them involvement because they have features that just make certain things pointless simply because of how that works. For instance, there's some creatures that have an ability known as green sight. That means if there are plants within inside its radius, if a player comes within proximity of those creatures, of those plants, it knows where the party's at because the plants are like, oh my god, here's a person right here. So it's like, go ahead, try to stealth up on it because you're out in the forest, so it's gonna know where you're at because the plants know you're there. There is no I'm invisible and I'm being super quiet. It's a your movements, you're stepping on grass, roots, coming in with proximity of things. They're like, yeah, I know you're there. So this is bypassing your invisibility. It's bypassing your high things there. So it's like I know where you're at. It may get a 50% mischance if it attacks you, but it knows what square you're at because of it. There's tremor sense where if you're within inside its radius and the surface you're touching directly kicks it while you're on the wall, ground, or ceiling. If you're with inside, like it's like let's say a 60-foot radius, it's like, oh, I know where you're at. So I get to go do an attack roll or whatever I am. I may get a mischance, but boom. While blind sight and blind sense are the most broken versions because they are the my abilities to just know where things are so good where unless you have some of the expanded spells or some of the expanded abilities, they're like, you're right there. Like dragons. Dragons' blind sensibility can be counted as BS because even if it's asleep, they're like, I don't suffer the -10 to notice you're there because I have ability that auto senses your presence. So unless you're a one of the expanded classes that lets you bypass it, I'm going to be able to go, why, hello, Clarice. It also doesn't help the fact that their blind sensibility, the radius, uh, goes off of their age category. So the older it is, the bigger the radius is. Uh, then there are certain features that make a creature just un unbeatable or seem impossible simply because you not only have to beat a really high AC, you have to then do enough damage to get over a DR, and while doing enough damage to counteract either a fast healing or a regeneration. Like, for instance, the Razor Boar, where you have to get like in the high 20s just to hit it, you have to do over 20 damage to bypass its DR, which magical weapon doesn't make it means you pass it. You have to have a certain uh, power rating on it. You also not only have to beat that 20 DR jar, there has to be over 10 points of damage done to it each turn to counteract its fast healing. So on a one-on-one fight, you have to do over 30 damage per hit just to actually have a chance of defeating it. So unless you're getting constant critical hits and or using some sort of weapons and stuff that just do an outrageous amount of damage, there's a beast that's just going to look at you and take all of what you can do because that's a party killer. Uh,
Well, Vorpal tusks will do that to you.
yes, they also have Vorpal Tusk, which means at any given time where I rolled a natural 20, it auto kills your character. This is like, oh, it's attacking you with a score attack. Oh, I rolled at 20. It's Vorpal Tusk just beheaded you. Next. So it's like,
Which doesn't make a lot of sense because the character could be 7 feet tall and it still beheads you.
well, it's because it's a massive, large sized creature. It's not a normal sized boar. It's a, dear God, it has a 6 foot tusk.
Okay.
And it's a bladed like tusk, not just a round tooth. It looks like a blade because it's razor sharp, and it never dulls. Uh, and despite a lot of its features, it's not even a magical beast. It's just a beast. So it's one step above being a normal animal, but one step below being a magical beast. It has qualities that would make you go, why isn't a magical beast? Because it has a vorpal on its tusk. It has a high DR factor and a high healing factor that makes you go, The fudge. Uh, but yeah, we will be going over some of those monsters, and while you're adjusting encounter rules where they would fit and why some creatures should be more abundant in certain environments and situations while other ones either shouldn't be in that environment and or not something that's constantly ran into. When it comes to expanded races, same thing, because not everything is suitable for all the stuff. Because unlike humans, a majority of the races have preferred environments, preferred situations, preferred cultures. The reason why they have role play complications is because of those things. And if you ignore con, um, role play
Complication.
complications, you're not playing the race accurately. And that's a big thing because it's a role playing game. That's why it's called an RPG, role playing game. Ignoring those things or just going, I don't care.
Well, saying I don't care means you're playing a role, not role playing.
Yeah. It's like a big thing is if a race is has an aptitude for something, it's better to be as close to that as possible for roleplay purposes because they go that way. And one of the examples of it was a person that was trying to join, but then they decided not because it's like there's certain things that just can't happen because of how that race operates, how that race does things. It's like here's a race that, yeah, it's a bird person. Yeah, they can speak to birds. Yeah, they can fly, but they're not a religious race. They are not a druidic race. They are scholars. They are magic users. They love books. They don't even really like actual melee combat. So it's uncommon for them to have fighters, warriors of any kind, because they're more like wizards and sorcerers. Uh, because they don't like it. So coming in as a druid, it's one of those like you're not you're not a typical member of that race, and you're not going to be treated as part of the whole. You're going to be one of those like why? Because they don't do that. So you're already playing outside the box, and the only reason is well, it speaks to birds, so they should be this. It's like no, no, and that's an example of something that seems like it will be really good in one situation doesn't mean it is. Then you have the fact that trying to change and play a certain appearance for a race that has a set appearance because the bird person isn't a oh just give me some sort of depiction of a bird and voila there it is. No, it's they're snow owls. That's what they look like. Primarily white with some gray tones, and it's mainly um some ruffled some things that make them different because they can have different owl features for they even though it's white and grays their way their feathers and stuff are can be more barn owl. They don't have to necessarily be um snow owl. It can somewhat look like a one of the great horned owls and stuff, so it can somewhat have some variance, but they don't look like songbirds going, I want to be a yellow bird like this. It's like, one, they have arms and wings, not wings that are arms. Two, they're not yellow. And three, they're not songbirds. This is their appearance. This is what they look like. If you want to go that route, here's how you go that route. You can't start out that way because it starts problems because it's not a general bird race. It's here's this here. So they didn't play because like, oh, it's a clone race. It's like, no, it's not. Not
I remember that.
yeah, yeah. It's a oh, it's too. It's like it's not super strict. It's this is this. Going all the way over here is means you're not playing the race anymore. You're just trying to go for random BS because you're not used to being told no. You're not used to going, I can't let you do that because that's too far away from this information here. Because being a druid already, you're you're outside the box. Like not even partially, you're outside the box for that race. And your only reason is they can talk to birds, so you don't even have a good reason to being outside the box. And letting you be outside the box is already the DM going, yeah, yeah, you're not accounting for this stuff here, but let's just go with it anyways, because let's not be like that anal repentive DM that's super, super strict. But then there's the whole, I don't want to be an owl person. I want to be this. It's like, well, they're owl people.
What you gonna
So
do
it's
besides
like,
be an owl person?
it's like,
Oh, I'm gonna quit.
it's like, it's like we created your character. We're all technically ready to go. But because you're going to assume it's an clone race because they all look 100% the same, when it's like, no, I already told you that here's how they can have different facial stuff. They're primarily white with these different grays, so it's like they all don't look the same. It's like yeah, they all are white owl people, and that's like the only real thing that makes them all look similar is the coloration of their feathers and their owls.
I mean, if that were true, then all the real snow owls would just be clones, and they're not.
Yeah, uh, it's like there's other races that have uh strict colors and stuff on them that are just as strict. Then there's other ones that's like, oh, here's what you have to play with. Here's what you have to do stuff with because they're more open. They're less broad. Um, so we will be covering a bunch of those things. We'll be going over some of those things. But that's after, like I said, we cover what we did. Yeah, my brain stopped working for a moment.
It does that a lot. It's surprising you're still alive with how much it stops.
Yes, it does. What is? I have no idea what my computer is trying to do. It's just trying to go all over the place now. But at this moment, we are going to end it. Thank you for watching. Uh,
Please
remember,
like and subscribe to YouTube.
yes, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. It is much appreciated. Uh, and your support does mean a lot to us here at uh, Out of State DMing. And remember, if you want to join the family, there will be links for both the Discord community server, so you can be more involved with us. So again, please like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful Saturday and Sunday,
There's
and
weekend.
enjoy your weekend. Thank you and good night.